My name is Heather George, and I'm super excited to open up and kick off our very first community of practice. Let me go ahead and share my screen. I wanted to let you know we are going to be recording the first portion of this so that folks, because we're going to have some background information, set the foundation, hear from a district exemplar, and then we're going to have an opportunity for you guys to go into breakout rooms, hopefully at least 30 minutes, maybe even longer, if time allows, for you to be able to talk amongst yourselves and network. So the recording will definitely be stopped then. So let me share my screen and we will go ahead and get started. I'm not the sole person here that's going to be leading this. You might see me as the main face for today, but there are a great team of people from our National Center on PBIS that are also going to be working and participating with you in the breakout rooms as well. And you'll get to know them too as you continue along additional community of practice events that we're having for this district leadership series. But I'm super excited that y'all are here. So let's go ahead and start talking about what are we going to be covering today. Thank you for joining us. I want to go through some basic norms that we've got set up, because there will be likely an opportunity where you will be able to turn your microphone on, especially when you go into the breakout room, because this really needs to be about you having the opportunity to connect with others and other district leaders. I want to talk to you about what the purpose of this is, the various resources that are available, and then give some background information about leadership teaming, and for you guys to hear directly from one of our district exemplars. And that's when you'll go into breakout rooms. There's 3 things that we will be talking about today. That's what's working, what's one challenge, and what kind of support's needed from there, and then an evaluation. But before we do that, or you could do that while I'm talking, if you could please rename yourself. Ideally, rename yourself with your real name. But there's some instructions here. Use your first name, your last name, with a comma, with a brief title or role for folks. So, and what your state abbreviation is. I know this is intended for district leaders, but it helps us at the National Center because we organize a lot of our supports around the SEAs. And so it'll help us to know how many folks from different states are participating from there. And another reason is there's only so many characters that Zoom will allow when you are renaming yourself. And so here's the instructions. You can right click on your name to change that. My colleague, let's see, I cannot see the chat box right now. You'll see that the handouts are being uploaded at various times throughout today, because I know when we join after handouts have been loaded, your chat starts to is refreshed and you may not have access to it. So the team that's supporting me in this will be uploading that. They'll also be uploading an evaluation link as well. That's going to be critically important, because in that link, it's an opportunity for you to say, what do you want as the main topic on our next 2 community of practice series that we have. So, and again, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. The other thing I would love for you to do, unfortunately, I can't see all of you right now because I have too many things open on my screen, but if you could please share your video so people could see your face and be able to make a connection with your face and your name. And especially when you go into the breakout room, if you could do that. All right, so what are the norms for this community of practice? That when we do have discussion activities, that you would participate in that. Please use the chat box to respond or post any questions to our large group. We're going to have people that are looking at that chat and will be jumping in throughout the time. They're gladly able to interrupt me. They know that to stop if we need to address something right then. Please make sure your microphone remains muted when you're not speaking. And like I said, we're going to hope to get the breakout rooms a little bit smaller and manageable so that you can unmute yourself and use your microphone to be able to share, because we know that that's faster with the community of practice process rather than typing in the chat box. And when you do go into your breakout rooms, I just want to remind you, while there will be somebody from the center that would be in there, but for one of you to say who's going to be the facilitator of it, there's 3 questions we will be covering. I will remind you of this when we get to it. But if somebody can step up to serve as a timekeeper for your breakout room, so you will have an opportunity to share, because we want everybody's voice to be heard. I have recorder on there, but we don't necessarily need to be writing anything down, just maybe jotting some notes down of what the overall themes that folks talked about. So when we do come back as a large group, that you'd feel comfortable of sharing that out with everybody else. The other thing, like I said, the handouts are being uploaded into the chat box. I don't know yet if they've been posted yet on PBIS.org. So where you all registered from the announcement on that site, the handouts will be posted there, and the recording of this beginning will be posted there as well. And again, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat box, and hopefully one of my colleagues will answer it or stop me so that I can answer it. As a reminder, I know this seems strange to put the evaluation up front, but I want to make sure to capture this early, because sometimes I know folks might step off right after a breakout room, or we get pulled away being so busy. So just as a reminder, to click on this link or to scan that from your phone to complete a very brief evaluation of this at the end today. All right, so I'm going kind of fast because I do want to have some time for this district exemplar to be able to talk, for you guys to ask them questions, and then for you guys to have the main piece to be able to talk with each other. But I think it's important that we get down to understanding, being clear on what a community of practice is, because I don't always think that they're necessarily used as they were originally designed. So just the basic definition of it's a group of people with a shared interest. So you're all district leaders, and the goal is to interact with each other, to kind of hone your abilities, learn from other folks, what they have done so you don't accidentally go down that road, or learn how they've actually, the barriers that they've done to achieve things and achieve their successes. But there are 3 main ingredients for a community of practice. One is having a domain where there's a shared interest, which we've got that with the district. The community is that there's the other ingredient is that it's a connected set of individuals. So you all are in that district leadership position, but then the practice is actually coming together and learning from each other in this. So again, you guys might be like, I know this, no big deal. But let's talk about why districts, why we'd want to do this. Well, the National Center on PBIS, we've learned that over the last 26 years, the LEA or district is absolutely key to implementation in schools. You guys are that liaison between what the state puts out and in between what actually happens in the schools to impact the individual child. We know that initiating, expanding, and sustaining PBIS at the school level requires absolute systemic support from the district. And we're seeing great success from districts that have built an infrastructure to support their schools, that their schools do sustain longer, do have higher impact. Also, organizing across multiple schools does require efficiency in resources, implementation efforts, and organizational management. So I am certain that you guys have run into roadblocks from that. And and we need to talk about that and share from each other of how folks have gotten through it. And also for you to know that you're not alone in what happens in your district. It's likely that somebody else has also struggled with those barriers as well. And it's important that PBIS at the district provides that supportive context for implementation at the school and classroom level. And so one of the things is that we thought this is important. How can we provide an avenue and a venue for district folks to come together? And this was a request of folks coming out of the school climate transformation grants, that they had said, what is their opportunity that they can continue to stay in touch with each other? So the purpose of this district leadership series is actually to talk about that leadership team, regardless of what your position is within the district, and we're going to see how can we best enable and support what the various functions that leadership teams need to do in order to be able to scale up across our district. You know, our center has been a leader in education, working together with state and local agencies, like I said, for 26 years. But how we're achieving this is through delivering a continuum of technical assistance to both the states, but also to districts. That included, for example, the School Climate Transformation Grant, those LEA awardees. But the goal is to build your capacity to implement, sustain, and scale PBIS. So the goal is this format to provide an opportunity for you guys to connect and to help to increase your understanding. This link that's at the bottom is the link that will go to a lot of the information that we post specific to districts and states go on to this topic page at the National Center. And all of those resources that are posted anywhere on pbis.org are free. And so that's all I had to say about that. So today's demographics for those that had registered. We pulled the report of registrations, and I'm looking to see how many might be here today. But as of yesterday morning, these were the various states that are represented across our country from the districts that signed up. So to me, I'm like, this is super excited to know that this is a nationwide event and to see how many states are represented here. As of, like I said, this was yesterday morning, there were 124 people that were registered. So of the 124, 28% of them actually attended our 2024 District Leadership Institute that we hosted on site in Chicago right before our leadership forum. So that's super excited for those guys that are there. This is a continuation of those discussions. 16% of those of you that have registered were current or former School Climate Transformation awardees. So those grants have officially ended, but there are some districts that are still in a no-cost extension right now and still may be implementing and finishing their activities. But the part that I thought was also cool is to see how diverse we were of a group of registrations. So I asked you in the registration to identify, based upon the number of students that your district serves, where you fall. And you can see it's a pretty good example across the board of what we've got. For 33% of you are coming from small districts versus 28% in medium districts, 18% in large, and 21% of you in very large. Again, this is assuming that everybody who registered all came back today. And I know that there were probably some more people who had signed up since then. I just didn't have a chance to go in and check it since yesterday. All right, so something to keep in mind about the resources that we're sharing is that I like to hyperlink anything. So whenever there's a picture of an icon of one of the products that we're talking about, you should be able to go directly in the handout that you have on your computer and hover over it and click, and it'll take you straight there to that product. I'm not a fan of having to mine down anything beyond 2 or 3 clicks. You've already lost my attention. So my goal is to create efficiency for you guys, so an ease in implementation, ease in access to this stuff. And so the 3 main resources that I think are going to be foundational to this district community of practice group is the PBIS implementation blueprint. If you have not had a chance to look at it, we had updated it last July, July of 2023. And the PBIS implementation blueprint provides a pathway for resources, and it's intended for regardless of where you're coming from. So whether you're working at a school site, district, or state, it provides the foundational pieces to what makes PBIS the framework, what's involved in the framework, and what are the various pieces across all of those different leadership team functions. Again, regardless of what context you're coming from. The second item on there is that I'm sharing is the PBIS District Systems Fidelity Inventory, also known as the DSFI. So that is the key that we often use to help districts in their action planning process to set up what their plan is going to be for how they're going to be able to implement, support, and sustain the PBIS work out there. And the other guide was the one that was recently released and launched at the District Leadership Institute in Chicago a few weeks ago, and that was the PBIS District Practice Guide. And that gives you so much nuts and bolts of if you're completing the DSFI, like, here are some ideas and things to think about and different resources to think about to help you improve those scores, because we know improved scores mean we're seeing improved outcomes overall for in the district. So where can you find all of this stuff? All of this stuff I said is located on pbis.org if you're not as familiar with that. But going to the topic pages, dropping down, you can see that district state PBIS there. That's where a lot of information is also going to be uploaded there. And we're also in the process of revising that web page as well. But if all else fails, go to the search button, type in what you're looking for, and you'll probably get more than you were looking for. And Insight, I go to the search button all the time. And here I'm a co-director of the center, and I love that search button. So just some heads up information. Also, we've got 2 more of the Community of Practice series for the district leadership teams set up for February 21st and May 2nd. And they are separate registration links. So if you haven't registered for it already, just know that those are the dates, and all of that will be housed on the announcement page of pbis.org. All right, our National Leadership Forum. So like I said, we had kicked this off a few weeks ago in Chicago, or almost a month ago. I guess it was a month ago, almost to the day. And we've already got the date set for 2025. It's still going to be downtown Chicago at the Hilton. So just wanted you to give you a heads up to put it on your calendar. A little different if you've gone in the past. It's usually kind of a Wednesday is the pre-forum event, and then Thursday, Friday is the actual forum. The dates have shifted due to whatever we can get at the hotel at that time. And so it's Tuesday, October 21st, and then Wednesday and Thursday is where the actual forum is happening. So I hope that you guys would be able to attend that. And again, social media, all of the latest resources and research, that's where you're able to find most of it pretty quickly. All right, I'm going to look very fast in the chat box to see if there's anything I'm missing. All right. Let's talk about enhancing leadership teaming, because all of you are coming from different levels. I saw everything from looking at the registration list. We had executive directors of special education or student services, everything from MTSS coordinators, PBIS district coordinators. So there was a big range of folks, as well as the technical assistance providers too. So, which is great. Sounds like you're in the right spot. So we're happy about that. To make sure that we're all on the same page and everything that we're talking about, you know, PBIS is a multi-tiered framework, and it's based upon its investing in that framework to organize our evidence-based practices that are also culturally relevant as well, to support the students, to increase and support the systems, which will in the end support the adults, and use data to support decision making so that we can achieve valued and equitable outcomes. I think the piece that's important is that each district has their own idea of what specific outcomes they want to have. Of course, we want all students to be successful. We want all teachers to enjoy their jobs and stay in their profession for a long time. But being specific of what types of gains you want for them, and focusing on that, and what are the practices we're engaging in to improve that, and what does the system need to do to reorganize itself in order for those practices to be able to be implemented with fidelity. So it's all, as you guys all know, it's all interconnected in that process, but it is a tiered process. And so for districts, you know, we think about kids, universal prevention at a school. Everybody, all students, all adults need to be supported on there. But then there's times, you know, some classrooms might need a little bit more support for whatever reason. Some might need intensive support, whether it's a new teacher or they have some really challenging students in the classroom. But just as how we're talking about that students move up and down this multi-tiered framework, and we've got to figure out ways to identify who needs the supports. Let's try to prevent as much as possible from happening. But let's also get in and provide the supports quickly and provide these interventions quickly to kids. But also we can do this as a system too for you at that district level, thinking about, well, what do all of your schools need in your district? Who needs a little bit more support, and then who needs the most intensive support, and using data in that process to make those decisions and monitor how well we're doing. So the big number one takeaway, I've got 5 takeaways for you before I turn it over to our district exemplar. Those 5 takeaways are to define those essential elements, making that very clear within your district. The second thing is the leadership team functions. So like I said, this applies whether it's a school team. It's important that they're addressing these functions as well as a state level team. And so for you as the district level team, pulling together who are your people for this leadership teaming process, and knowing that there's actually 2 functions on this. There's the executive function that deals with that top part of who are our partners that we need to recruit. What's the funding and alignment? Because we don't want to appear as contradictory, but at the same time, we also don't want to appear as duplicating efforts as well. How does this impact policy across our district? And then what do we need to do to improve the workforce based upon what we're seeing in our data and what we actually need to achieve? From there, those implementation functions get into the training piece, how we're coaching and supporting our classroom teachers for implementation, as well as our administrators for implementing this, and the evaluation process of how folks are doing, and then what we're going to do in response to what those data show. Goal is that we're creating these local implementation demonstrations so others can come see how it works. So second takeaway is to build local capacity. The third is the continuous improvement process. And so this continuous improvement process, sometimes folks will refer to it as the problem solving process. But if we want to be not so much focused on problem per se, third takeaway is use data for continuous improvement. But I would add maybe almost 2 more steps in this process. When we're talking about continuous improvement, we want to continue things that are working well. But we also need to look and see where are things not working well. And I think sometimes by using the term problem solving, we're instantly going to focus only on the negative. Well, let's also think what is working well, because those are the things we want to sustain. But I would add this extra step in there. We've got to engage our partners and develop a common mission together and figuring out who are we before we start figuring out what's happening. Why is this happening? What are we going to do about it? And then evaluate, is our plan working? And then add a 5th step in there on, we need to then communicate with the partners and solicit their feedback on who needs to know. You know, collecting a bunch of data doesn't help if we don't ever let the partners know what the data said and what we've done about it. So I think that's the piece sometimes that gets missed, is folks don't know what happened. So again, third takeaway is use that data for continuous improvement. The other thing about the PBIS framework for you to think about is that implementation logic piece. So this 4th takeaway is to adapt to meet the new or intensified needs. So when we're thinking of implementation logic, it's thinking about what do we need to do to get ready so that we're most successful for implementation? What do we need to do to get started? What do we need to do to get better? And there's a lot of different steps in it, but it's also a cyclical process in that you may have engaged in Tier 1 PBIS. You have already are getting better at it, but maybe you're starting to move into the advanced tiers and starting to look at readjusting your structures, your process for that, and how can we better identify students and get them the help faster within the PBIS framework. Well, that's the piece of where we're in that implementation logic. We're getting back to what do we need to do to get ready for this? Think of the partners we need to get involved. How does this affect our other systems we have in place? The alignment pieces, what types of training need to happen? So you can see that this is an ongoing process, but it's important to keep that implementation logic in your mind, because it's not so linear like we can check it off the list. In the implementation blueprint, we do have a snapshot of leadership team functions across the implementation phases. So if you wondered, like, okay, if I'm getting ready, here's a quick snapshot of all of the various types of tasks. It's not fully inclusive, but it's a quick snapshot of the overall tasks across these leadership team functions. And then it expands across what we've got for getting started, as well as for getting better. And last but not least is our fifth takeaway is to get and stay connected. So that's one of the big goals of this community of practice that we've set up, but to remember that you're part of this implementation cascade. So even though all of your focus was within the district, knowing that what you were doing hopefully sometimes would inform the state in that process, but hopefully what you were setting up within the district infrastructure actually trickles down to impact the school, that impacts the classroom, because we want to have those positive impacts for the individual student. If you want to know, if you're not sure who your state contact is, if you click on the link, the very first link that's there, PBIS state coordinators, that will take you straight to who those contacts are within your state. And again, signing up for other community of practice events, that would be in that announcement link. That's the second one there. All right, so that was a lot. I couldn't look at all of the faces or what was happening within the chat box. I will definitely read them, but I'm going to turn it over to our district exemplars that we have here today. And I thought we could learn a little bit from them, and then we will break off into our rooms to have deeper discussion.
Great, thanks, Heather. And I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. I'm going to introduce and co-present with Miss Julie Hayden from St. Johns County Schools. I've had the pleasure of working with her from Florida PBS and being her TA support for the last 3 years. She's going into her 3rd year, which I can't even believe. And we wanted to share their story and kind of what that's looked like since we've had a nice level of leadership over that district team and support of schools, and how it's trickled down into all kinds of levels of both executive functionings and implementation functionings for St. John's. So Heather, if you don't mind just scooting forward, Warring One, before we dive into the district, just a brief intro to our cascade and our state. So Florida PBS, we are supported through the center, and through our project, we work this backwards. We go down, we go up in terms of feedback, that bi-directional feedback loop between us to our district teams. Like Julie is my district coordinator in St. John's with her district leadership team. It goes all the way down to get to our key stakeholders or partners at that local level and coming back up. And then a key piece for today, I put 2 hyperlinks to Heather's great point of, if it's more than 2 links, you're going to lose me earlier. I hyperlinked 2 things for you. On the right is, in this cascade, there's a very crucial role of that leadership of the team and that district coordinator. So because it is such a valuable part, and you'll see the impact it's had in this particular district exemplar, I wanted to hyperlink our little document that outlines some of the expectations and responsibilities of that critical role. And Julie is just an all-star in this role, so I'm glad she's getting to share with this group today, and just has such a story of when you have that crucial leadership role, the major momentum a district can get in terms of supporting these efforts. The other one I hyperlinked, just because we are a little bit different in this national context, is our district best practices rubric. It is aligned to the DSFI that Heather was just talking through, and the blueprint categories that we were just saying in those executive and implementation functioning. So not really different, but just because it is a little bit different looking, our districts can still use the DSFI. We wanted to hyperlink that as well. And for example, our leadership team items that we look at in that are the exact same that we look at in the DSFI, for example, that team leadership. And we're going to talk a lot about that executive leadership feedback or authority. So that was a quick introduction to that, Heather. And I have one more introduction to our district. So I mentioned Julie is going to share some bits of her story in our brief 10 minutes with you today. And this was my way to summarize why I'm so glad she could join us, because she started in that full-time leadership role as their first time in this district to ever have a position that had some FTE protected for this work. So there's a huge win. Second win was straight out of the classroom, and having done this at a classroom level to integrate across several behavioral initiatives. She came not only with full-time, but was able to come to a district leadership role of integrating several behavior initiatives, which we all know is a huge win at that level. So as she came into that role with starting to do some of those things with forming our leadership team, representation, partnering at that district level, these are some of that continuous improvement idea that Heather was saying that I just think summarizes their story really well for these last couple of years. And Julie's going to talk through that a little bit more with you. But I can't emphasize enough, when she came in, and wasn't super excited about building the data-based expertise side, but she has just been an all-star at learning that, not only using discipline trend data, but disaggregated data, which is not easy, and is in a particular need in her district. So just watching the expertise of her and her team in doing that has made them have huge wins across the arrow that you see. So while their leadership team's gotten much better at communication with that executive, the big decision makers in our district, they've also gotten better across at broadening that membership, broadening the expertise across tiers, across departments for partnerships, and mainly doing that through better data. She's more accurate, usable data when we've gotten in that team. And each time we met, we get better and better at that. And that takes us to the end, those goals. We've gone more from when we started, like those task goals. Let's form a team. Let's look at who's on that team. Let's look at the data we can gather, to more long-term broad goals. Like let's have all your initiatives mapped out in alignment for schools to know what instructional resources they can use, for example. So really kind of broaden that. And on the bottom is the best part of the story. What's happened with this leadership development in this district is, because that's happened, that momentum has led to several impacts, which if I had more time with you today, we would have gone all kinds of graph crazy, but we're not going to do that in our brief time. I just summarized some of the impacts I've seen from this work in them, and across 3 short years, major increases in our schools that are implementing high levels of training and coaching supports, to which before this leadership was present, we had very low levels of that, and very low levels of schools implementing in the district. And then even more exceptional than that is they have now more accurate evaluation data that corresponds with, she's getting more local exemplars in this district, or model schools in our model school process in the state each year. And it was part of the goals, because she's a tiny bit competitive, Julie Hayden, but also her district likes to have those model school exemplars be the speakers across the district, especially principals to principals. So that's just some of those quick outcomes we've seen as a result of the broad leadership. And then if you'll go ahead and move me forward one more, I'm going to then let Julie start to take over to share her story and that continuous improvement process that Heather was talking. So we did our best, right, Julie, to put it in like getting ready, getting started. And our last slide for you will be getting better. But I told her it's okay if she wants to jump and blend and go through all those bullets in terms of the story and what that's looked like for her. So I'm going to introduce Julie Hayden, my district coordinator for St. Johns County.
Oh my goodness, thank you. Thank you for that. It's definitely an honor to talk to you guys today. So I appreciate you reaching out to us in little St. Johns County, Florida. So we appreciate it. As Kat mentioned, I was an educator in a classroom 13 years, and this role came out, and many people at my school are like, oh, wait, this is the role for you. So I took that leap of faith, and now I'm happy I did that. And this is my 3rd year in it. But really my first year, because I was on the PBIS team at the school level and on my team level, it was really to learn the district coordinator role versus all the other stuff. So when Kat was mentioning data, like I can look at like little small data, but looking at it from a district lens was something I had to really train my eyes and understand it fully, so I can have some meaningful conversations with my schools. And thankfully they were patient with me as I was learning this role, because this is the first time again that someone has been consistent in this role, because when they created the role to begin with, we had someone at prior, but then COVID hit, and then they went down the leadership path. And then here I am after that. One of the biggest things I had to do with getting ready is really understanding the dynamics of each of our departments within the school district, because we're getting to be medium to big size, and how can we collaborate? I like to call it's a lot of parallel play that we do, and I'm trying to find ways for us to all get in the same sandbox together. It's not like I'm a 1st grade teacher. Sorry, I have to put the visual out there for you guys. But really, like, we're all talking the same language, so why can't we all talk it at the same time and be in those, data decision making roles and such. So my goal that first year was to survive. Also, I had 2 coaching meetings with my schools, one in semester 1 and semester 2, just to get out there and really meet my schools and teams. And then the next year I decided let's have 3. And they were virtual because we're still bouncing back from COVID. But then that last one at the last school year, we went in person. And the amount of sharing we had amongst schools, Kat and I unanimously decided like we had to have our coaching meetings in person going forward. It is hard to find a time when you're looking at elementary and we have K-8s, middle school and high schools, but I had to like find the time and just stick to it and stick to my guns because I want to please everyone. But I was like, I can't do it. Can't. It's like finding a needle in a haystack trying to find the exact, time to meet with everybody. I did move to the next slide. Thank you, Heather. You're doing fabulous. Thank you. Year 2, also, I work a lot with our Inc., which is invested in kids. We have, they support our teachers and such. And we are very blessed to have them, and they're able to apply for every grant you can think of. And so they were able to provide stipends for our summer trainings, whether it's a booster training or new school training. And it really tied back to a lot of our school improvement plans. So it was easy to make that connection back to it. Because as we know, I'm a former educator. My summer is my summer and I'm not getting paid for it. But if you say I get my stipend for the day, I am going to be there. And so we had a lot of schools join. I think last summer we had, 19 of our schools come to train, which was probably the most we've had in a very long time, but it was very meaningful conversations. And they were also getting paid. So in my eyes, it was a win-win. We also have monthly meetings with our executive leadership team. They're called SALT. It's the Student Elite Achievement Leadership Team. I meet with them monthly to go over data and data trends that's going on, just so we can have that buy-in from the very top of senior executive leadership all the way down into the school building. I think it really helps when you have that buy-in all around. And I offer coaching cycles to all of our schools. I am always in schools. I honestly don't remember the last time I actually sat at my desk. I'm actually at a school right now, a school counselor's office, so I'm not even in my office. I'm constantly out and about. If there's any events that my schools have, I'm in there helping, getting down and dirty, helping them pull all together. And so this year we did 4 coaching cycles meetings, and we've had 2 in person. And I'm slowly but surely getting the parallel plane to the sandbox. We brought transportation in to really talk about because it was National School Bus Safety Week at the end of October. So we talked about bus expectations. And our director of transportation, he made a keynote to all of our senior leadership of every school that has lower bus referrals, there are PBIS schools. So why are not all of our schools PBIS? We're a school-based decision district, so we're not going to tell our schools what to do. But he kind of connected those dots, like, why are we not all doing it? And I was like, that's a great question, $1 million question for everyone. So we're getting closer to that sandbox. But I will go into schools and model expectation lessons. I'll share resources. I created a Padlet of all of our resources amongst the districts so everyone can kind of see what's going on, because as teachers, we're the biggest thieves. So why not steal from each other? With a smile, of course. And I help them with data digs. In my position, I am a coordinator of student support services. So in addition to PBIS, I do a lot with the Florida required instruction to the state. We have 5 hours of mental wellness, substance use and abuse prevention, human trafficking, like all of that. It really aligns with everything that I'm doing because it interacts and it integrates aspects of character and resiliency standards, which is big in Florida, and it builds that common language across campuses. And I'm reminding our schools that PBIS is not a program. We are a framework that already fits in perfectly to what we're doing. We are a character counts exemplary district. So we're already doing the work, and they blend together. So I feel like principals know not to say PBIS is a program to me because they're afraid of what I'm going to say to them. And I don't blame them because it's a framework. And now that we're in the 3rd row with looking at data, we have been really able to dig apart and see which schools are really doing well at the tier 1 level. And let's invite them to the conversation. Let's look at your tier 2 and tier 3. And we're doing a lot of coaching with that, all while still focusing on tier 1, because that is still extremely important. And I have to say this every time I am out and about, I always say Maslow before Bloom. I have to, because PBIS to me is Maslow before Bloom. We have to teach them that. We have to meet their basic needs before we can actually teach them. And that is everything in a nutshell. So I did all
You
one
did
month.
great. I'm like,
But-
so just hearing her say, I'm getting Julie 2 bumper stickers. One is Maslow Problem and PBS is not a program. She's gotten so good at mapping things to the framework that connect the dots in the district. And I'm going to hit on 2 themes that she nicely talked through in her story. One is her expansion of schools, because we didn't mention in the last slide, but high schools. There was no high school activity in this particular district. And when we looked at discipline data in the district team, high schools had a definite need. So she got the first 3, actually 4, if we count one of
4.
our alternative sites,
Yeah.
to come on board. And not only did they come on board, but they hosted one of her school coaching meetings that she was just mentioning to share out some of the examples last time. So she's kind of kept the pulse on them and kept them moving. And then, like she said, that expanded leadership membership, she is getting some of that parallel play reduced across, and then really getting good. And I did hyperlink it, so I wanted to mention that one. That tiered supports not only for everybody to come together and coaching supports, but for that school level support. And we use the student outcome profile for disaggregated data. And in getting to know her data system, some of the challenges they're running up to, she helps the schools in running that more often to take a look across subgroups and start to coach them on that, and lots of support at that classroom level. So I just want to hit on those couple things for her and how brave she's gotten with the SALT group that she mentioned, because I know the first time she was very intimidated by that group, and now she's gotten so good at that voice between the teams. And I'm kind of excited. Our next large district leadership team is February, and just we've gotten so much better each district team. From before Julie and the district team, we had a team of maybe 2 or 3 at the district level in this district, and it was all from one department. So just kind of showing how far they've come. But I know we're over time, and I just wanted to say thank you for her for joining us. And then I think, Heather, you wanted us to answer a couple questions. If you want to go to the next slide, I think it's on questions.
Yes, sorry, I couldn't unmute.
No worries. So were there...
Oh, it's a perfect opportunity from what you guys heard and thinking about what's happening in your districts. What kinds of questions do you have for Julie and Kat from what they had shared?
No data questions, please. I'm just kidding.
She can answer them though.
See, I was that thorough. There's no questions.
I know, I know.
We did add our emails also. Julie's emails in the first slide that introduced the district. If you have questions later that you'd love to reach out to her or myself, you're welcome to.
I think I did see a question. Something about high schools. I don't know where it went. Where did it go? How do we get high schools on board? That's a great question. I am in and out of schools a lot, and I was actually just traveling with another coworker to a school, and we were talking about Link Crew, which is a high school orientation for our freshmen. And I happened to have someone in front of me, and I just said, "Hey, you guys, we're going to go visit a school in a neighboring county in high school. Would you like to join us?" And then she called a friend at another high school. So it was just really about building those relationships and kind of offering, like, you're already doing it, so why don't we kind of like fine tune it and have an added resource? So let's just go look at a nearby school and see how it's run. And then it just came on like wildfire.
Yeah, and she chose some good ones as far as leadership buy-in as well to those high schools. So to her point, there was a desire there in those high schools. They had need, and they were right on board with seeing how it looks at other high schools, like she was saying.
And I do think it helped too, having administrators who have been at previous schools in our district. We like to move our leaders throughout all the time, and they had previously been at a PBIS school per se, and so they were familiar with it, so that the sell of it really wasn't that too difficult because they see the benefits of it. Speak to family, community, and board involvement at the district level. Yes, and I have Kat jumping on that more too. Our board members, our school board members, they're heavily involved. I like to invite our board members when we do walkthroughs. Kat always laughs at me, but I get them inside the schools and it gives them a presence so they can see everything going on. I have no problem just going out there and and speaking to everyone like, come on, let's do it. Come watch me. I'm already there. Let me show you what we're doing in the district. So really, again, you start with the top down, and I start with the school board members. Same with families and communities. I make sure that our families include stuff in their newsletters that they send out. I think it's very important for them to have that common language of expectations and how can you word these questions at home. You know, my previous school, we were focused on safety was one of them. And my daughter at home, like, can you tell me if that was a safe choice or not? Like, how can you focus on safety? So just kind of having that language at home and having those question starters sent and those home newsletters can really drive that home.
Yep, and I will just follow up her comment with one to the family question. One, she is great at board members. I couldn't go on a walk when we first modeled walkthroughs and went through them. She's way past that now. She has graduated, but got me one up and had a board member with her. So she does really well with that. But two is, I think Julie's district, they learn a lot from schools with family voice because they have a couple great sites, some of their model exemplars, one of which presented the forum a couple years for us, but which was Julie's past school. But the way they incorporate family voice and have family membership represented, I think they've learned a lot from the school level up to the district level, just talking to that inverse cascade of how we learn from each other. I think that's been helpful for her to share across other schools. They are still working on the district voice as a permanent membership of the district team, but as far as the board involvement and family voice in this district, kind of going more of that ad hoc, to use that term, version of family voice at the district level, but then learning from the schools.
I thought I saw a question about what we do at our coaching meetings. The first thing I always do is I invite 3 to 4 schools to share some of their best practices at schools. So that way it does a lot of collaboration. We thought an hour and a half would be good for our coaching cycles, but it ended up having to be 2 hours because we spent a good solid hour and a half on just schools sharing with each other because they actually get together under one roof and we really share. And then the other portion of it, we look at their data from the implementation checklist maybe and just see overall as a district, like where is a need that we need to work on. So we just provide a little coaching there as well. You know, last year was families and communities. So we really focused on that last year. And you're starting to see the trends of it actually, you know, it's coming together, like it's working. And then this year is more about data-based decision making. So we're working on that and we have a very unique data system that we're the only one in the state of Florida. So I really have no one to ask out in our other counties. So we're learning this data system together and asking our IT department if they can program it for us to get really like drilled down reports that works best for us. So really just school sharing, collaboration, training on the needs that they have, and then just looking at data and seeing what's happening across campus. I don't know if there was any questions.
Yeah, I'm just gonna check in with Heather on time. Do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted, I want to make sure that Marlon's question was answered. She'd asked about if there were binders across tiers. Let's see. They have a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 binder for PBIS. Do you also have those in your districts?
Pat, would that be referring to the live binder?
Yes, we could share, Marilyn. She uses, well, she mentioned 2 things. One is the trainings. We do trainings by tier and we have tiered resources aligned to live binders. We could share those, but also I think your coaching Padlet that you're mentioning where you're starting to add resources across tiers would kind of factor into Marilyn's question.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yep, Marilyn, if you have an email, I'm happy to send some of those links we could send, and I can send your Padlet to Julie.
Absolutely.
Again, if you guys have additional questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat box, but let's give a huge thank you to Kat and to Julie for talking. Thank you so much for coming in, sharing your wisdom with all of us. And we know that it's a continuous improvement process, so it doesn't mean that you have all the answers whatsoever. And that I hope that you'll continue participating in other ones and get ideas from other folks as well. And so just know that we want to have more folks as exemplars, but thank you for being our first exemplar for this community.
My goodness.
Thank you for the great work that you're doing and being able to share it. I know it was a tough task to say, hey, can you cover the implementation logic in just a few slides, and,
Yeah.
and there was a long delay, which I was like, I know that's a hard ask, but you
I
did
think-
great.
Kat and I met a few times this week just to cram in the 10 minutes, like, okay, can you really narrow it down for me? So I appreciate it.
Well, and we weren't originally going to record this beginning session, but I thought I don't want to miss this important information, because I think whenever exemplars talk, it's like, oh, if we'd only videotaped it and had it to refer back to. So thank you so much, that information. Again, you guys have their contact information. It's on the slide. I see that they're putting it also in the chat box, but we'll continue this conversation. So now is perfect time where we're going to be going into the small breakout rooms. And for these small breakout rooms, like I said, I just want to share briefly, there are going to be 3 questions that you're going to be covering, but I'm going to allow you to self-select which breakout room you're going in based upon the size of your district. And if you feel like you went into the wrong one, I'll be here to I can help get you back into a different one. So we'll see how that goes. As for the folks that are helping, that are going to be supporting this from the center, I'll be figuring out which of them that you go in, and if there's too many of you in one room and you want to move to another, we'll get that all worked out. But I'm seeing it's 12:51, and so if we could have a good 30 to 35 minutes in the breakout room, so we could just come back together just briefly, maybe 5 minutes before our end time, to just do a quick share out, and if there are any bigger questions for the larger group. And again, if anybody has additional questions, please put them in the chat box. I'm still going to be here. So I'm going to go ahead. You see these 3 main questions here. Again, they're also in your handouts as well, because the minute I stop sharing, this is going to disappear as a warning. But I believe that Karen was going to put them in the chat box, or we will get these questions to you. Big thing is, what's going well? What's your biggest challenge, and what kind of support do you need? All right, so I'm going to open the rooms and let you guys go ahead and go into the rooms. Like I said, we're not taking formal notes with this. This is an opportunity to be sharing and learning from each other, and we want everybody to have some time to be able to talk.